The Keychron Q3 Max is one of the best keyboards I've ever used. That isn't exaggeration or hyperbole, it's genuinely one of the most premium quality and just top-notch boards I've laid my, frankly, grubby hands on. It's open source, customizable, and one of the best built keyboards I've used. Honestly, it's kind of like a work of art. Like, what other keyboard, brand, or even model gives you spare external and internal screws just in case you strip them and need to replace them? No one! So yeah, while this isn't as flashy in feature sets as, say, an analog keyboard, it's a top quality board that I can highly recommend. Now, with that clear, let me explain why. First off, a brief tour of the board. This is an ANSI layout, the only option available right now, which means it isn't my ideal choice, but for this board, I'll make do. It's a TKL layout with a few interesting changes. Print screen, scroll lock, and pause have been replaced by screenshot, Siri, and RGB mode buttons, and the F keys row have been shifted left in order to fit their knob. Yes, this is the knob version. Even the box makes that clear. No, but seriously, this has a rotary encoder knob tucked between F12 and screenshot. This is undeniably the wrong place for this. There isn't enough room here to comfortably grip the knob's head and twist. Oh god, I'll stop with the jokes now. In all seriousness though, there just isn't, this isn't a convenient place to put it. My pudgy fingers certainly don't help, but you'll struggle to use this comfortably. Now moving to the top side, this is where you'll find the USB-C ports, wireless switch, and Mac/PC switch. The Q3 Max supports 3 modes: wired via the USB-C ports, Bluetooth with up to 3 separate devices, and wireless with the included 2.4 GHz dongle. The dongle comes with a USB-A to C adapter, which lets you keep the dongle on your desk and gives you easy access to the cable to charge the board when needed. The USB-C cable comes with a C to A adapter on the other end too, and the cable itself is a rather nice braided affair. Before we dive inside this thing, I should explain what this feels like to type on. I opted for the Gateron Jupiter Banana switches, which are tactile switches with 59 gram force of pressure required. They have a shorter than average travel at 3.4mm and 2mm of pre-travel. To me, these feel amazing. They are somewhat similar to the feel of the glorious pandas that I use daily, and I must admit that the construction of the board only makes the typing experience better. The feel and sound is softer and more muted, and an awful lot more premium than I'm used to. Have a listen. For typing, this is an excellent experience. The box lists this as a productivity tool, and I wholly agree. I can happily type away on this all day with no problems. Part of that comes from the keycap set. These are double shot PBT, non-shine through caps with a KSA profile. That's somewhat cupped, and the caps themselves are kind of dished too. This makes for a remarkably comfortable feel, at least for me, and the side profile of the shell aids that too. It's pretty tall up at the top, and so you might want a wrist rest to go with it, but even without, I had a pretty good time with it. Cracking this thing open is beautifully easy. There's just 8 gold-plated looking hex bolts holding the chassis together, and then you need to carefully remove the battery connector to separate the 2 halves. The battery is listed as 4000 mAh, which gives the Q3 Max plenty of runtime. On top of the battery is a plastic sort of panel, and then a thin layer of foam, then a rubber-coated layer of foam, and then there's the PCB itself, another layer of foam in there, another PET film sheet, and then the top aluminium shell. No wonder this thing sounds so good. From an electronics standpoint, the two main things to know here is that the main microcontroller here is an STM32F4, a fairly beefy ARM Cortex-M4 chip. It's actually the same core that I use in the open source response time tool, and that's what's running the show. Although, for the wireless features, that's run by this little add-on board. There's an external antenna that uses this plastic cutout on the top of the shell to get the signal outside the otherwise all-enclosed shell. And just a note on the sort of attention to detail, the PCB has two of these tiny little sort of cable clamps to secure the antenna as it traverses the board. How thoughtful is that? Considering most would just hot glue the antenna in place, this is refreshingly detailed. The switches are also hot swappable if you're interested, so if you get the bare bones kit or you just want to swap out the switches once you've got one, that's no problem. The only thing that's actually soldered to the board is the knob. With this all back together, I think it's time to talk gaming. While this doesn't have quite the same competitive advantage as the Endgame Gear KB65HE I reviewed last week has with its magnetic Hall effect switches and adjustable travel distance, the short travel of these banana switches do feel pretty great. It's pretty responsive and easy to control, and sure does feel premium to use. If gaming was all you wanted to use your keyboard for, I think something like the KB65HE is a better choice, but if you're a developer or just someone who does a lot of typing, this might be the better choice. I mentioned that the Q3 Max was customizable, and that it is. It uses QMK as its firmware of choice, which means you can use VIA to customize it rather easily. As of filming, you will have to upload the design file first before it will recognize it and let you do anything, but that should get sorted when the changes get merged with VIA. Customization is pretty easy. The only thing that left me scratching my head was the knob config choices. You can control what it does, but at least right now it seems like you have to know what commands to enter to get it to do something other than volume control. I'm sure that'll be improved too, or I'm just missing something. Either way, let me know in the comments down below. This also helps reveal a few extra functions that aren't laid out on the keyboard as secondary functions, like the RGB controls at the top left, like QW and that sort of thing. Of course, for things like that Siri key, you can swap it to do something more useful if you don't have a Mac or just don't like giving companies endless data on you. The only downside to that is that the only spare keys that come in the box are the sort of Windows sets of keys, so Windows and Alt to swap out for Command and Option, plus a lock key. You can always get a spare set of keycaps from Keychron to be able to mix and match if you'd like though. We should probably talk about the price tag. It's $214, which after import taxes is probably around £200 shipped to the UK. That is definitely premium, although it's also pretty obvious where your money goes with this thing. The sheer heft of it makes it suitable to be a lethal weapon, and the quality this thing exudes makes it clearly worthwhile. With that said, you're probably going to pick up a wrist rest, maybe some keycaps, and maybe even some other switches to try out, so that $214 is really the minimum price tag. I appreciate if that prices you out here, although when it comes to the semi-custom keyboard market, remarkably, that's actually not that bad. I do wish that the knob was in a better place, and I actually wish that the keycaps were shine-through, because this thing does have RGB lighting, but it's barely visible, and it doesn't do the job that I want that lighting for, which is actually lighting up the keys. Both of those things can be fixed with other keycaps and whatnot, but still. This is one of the best keyboards that I've used, and if it sounds like it's for you, I highly recommend it. If you happen to be interested in picking up a Q3 Max, I'll leave a link to Keychron's website in the description. That's not an affiliate link, although as always, and as listed in the description, they sent me this to review, but It's not sponsored or anything like that. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel, you can do so with the links in the description. You can hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon to get notified of these videos when they go up. Check out plenty of other videos in the end cards, including that KB65HE video you might be interested in. And otherwise, that's kind of it. If you want to be able to test your own sort of stuff, like keyboards and mice and also monitors and stuff, I make my own hardware, the open source latency and response time testing tools. Those will be linked in the description down below at osrtg.com. But yeah, otherwise, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you all in the next video.